So that brings me to the second issue, and it's slightly more controversial. Excuse me, it's getting a wee bit cold out there. And it's to do with the tobacco industry. Now, this is an industry which is mired in controversy. It does have a sullied past, and it does take a lot of defending, given that we're living in an age of political correctness, health issues, the drive for longevity, and in many ways the whole tobacco industry is the antithesis of where we are supposedly going as a society. However, and speaking as a researcher, one of the things we need to do to properly evaluate anything that we study, and I'll qualify that because I'm in the front line of research in terms of data collection, and not in the evaluation end where the data is graphed into charts and, you know, flow charts and graphs and all the rest of it, and analysing what the data means. But I do that from time to time as more of a hobby, and also to give myself a better awareness of why am I studying such and such, why am I studying drivers or smokers or political views or views to wind farms or the nuclear energy industry. Why am I studying this? Obviously the government or a Quango or a big corporation has got a plan, and they're thinking of what they're going to introduce to you, the public, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, and we're out there in advance finding out A, what you think of their proposals, B, finding out what is required, and C, testing the water to see how well a new proposal for a service or a product is going to go down. Now, the tobacco industry has suffered from a lot of negative publicity, and justifiably so. However, so much so that in many respects, and this is my opinion as a researcher, the focus has been taken off other products and services which do have a detrimental effect on health. Now, recently we had the scandal with the Volkswagen cars that had all been basically rigged to deceive us into thinking they were low emitting vehicles, and it turns out they weren't. You could talk about the power industry, you could talk about the oil industry, you could talk about the nuclear industry, you could talk about the food industry, and all of these are skeletons in the closet, and some of them a great deal of skeletons which are not exposed to the same degree. The tobacco industry has had, in some respects, an unjustifiably large amount of negative publicity, and that is understandable in terms of where we've been going as a society. There was a time when tobacco was respected as an industry. It was a massive contributor to the public purse, and still is in terms of government tax revenue. It was a massive employer. It was one of the 4 or 5 key commodities which were traded going back to the 17th century, possibly earlier, maybe to the 16th century, on an international scale. And those other commodities would have been things like cotton, sugar, to some extent the trade in raw materials like spices and ivory, and tobacco. Now, if you take all these basic commodities independently, you're looking at the majority of the trade or the trading world as it stood at the start of the last century. Iron and steel became bigger as a proportion of the overall economies. In terms of commodities, there was always trade in gold and silver and precious metals. Less so as silver in particular was removed from the currency, so that coins that used to contain silver started having less and less percentage until there was virtually no silver in your money. That depressed the price of the silver. Slightly different history with gold. But back to tobacco. Tobacco has remained a constant right the way through, going back 300 years and longer. And its use as a product's expanded tremendously. It would appear that tobacco is not just a beneficiary in terms of employment at one end, the consumer end, the people that sell, the retailers, you know, the kiosks, the shops, the supermarkets, all the big chains sell tobacco in various forms, loose tobacco, cigarettes, and the new electronic cigarettes. All of these, although they're technically not tobacco, they are nicotine products. Nevertheless, it's the same companies that produce all this stuff. People like the British American Tobacco, Philip Morris, and there's several other big boys. If you take British American Tobacco, FTSE 100 company, one of the most profitable British companies in the last 100 odd years, massive contributor to the public purse in terms of tax revenues. They're a massive employer on a worldwide scale over, I think, 50 different countries. They have production and consumption of their products. Anyway, what I'm really concerned about is not the tobacco industry. What I'm concerned about is the hypocrisy that is going on, which is targeted at certain industries and completely allowing others to literally get away with murder. Now, if I buy a packet of cigarettes, I know, or I should know as an adult, that there's a health risk. It says on the packet, you know, may kill, pictures of horrible lung disease and, you know, whatever else is on there. And looking at that, there is really no excuse for me to then turn around and say to the tobacco company, oh, I appear to have developed a health condition and I am suggesting it is because of your product. Now, I had no idea that this product would cause me a lung problem or a respiratory chest problem. I had no idea that this product might have some effect on my unborn child in the womb, or my young children in the house. So, I mean, with today's level of education, the draconian banning of cigarettes on the one hand, and other tobacco products, yet we have a promotion on the other hand of things like electronic cigarettes, which you can now freely advertise in newspapers, magazines, television, blah blah blah. So we're telling children on the one hand bad, but on the other hand, and I'm sorry I don't have an electronic cigarettes packet, good. This is good because it will stop you smoking. But the two things contain nicotine, and that's the key. It's not should you smoke electronics or should you smoke cigarettes, it's should you be consuming nicotine and becoming an addict of a nicotine product. Why does the government ban one and not the other? Well, because there's a perception that electronic cigarettes are doing a good job of getting people off of these. Now here's the reality. They're not doing a good job of getting people off of these. What they are doing at best is substituting one product for another. the majority of electronic cigarettes that smokers I've spoke to over the last 2 years come into a category of long-term consumer. They're not specifically on electronic cigarettes as a means of ridding themselves of a nicotine habit. They have either had medical advice telling them get rid of these or you're going to suffer a health problem, or they are suffering a health problem and they've been told to either stop or transfer to electronics. What you have in this hand is a growing industry of electronic cigarette products, and therefore a growing number of consumers, and that includes young people who've never smoked, picking them up and trying them, liking them, and potentially long-term consumers of electronic cigarettes. So a very clever move in some respects from the, you could say, the tobacco industry to get behind this. They're not so much losing a customer. I mean, the clever thing is, if these do kill you, and a lot of evidence suggests that they contribute to, you're going to smoke a pack of cigarettes and die. But if you smoke enough of them, like if you consume enough of anything, sooner or later you will suffer the health effects, and those health effects are not even, some people are more predisposed towards resistance and not as being affected by these as others who literally should never put a cigarette in their mouth because of their genetic makeup. They will suffer. The bottom line is, you're going to get a shorter life expectancy statistically on cigarettes. Now that translates into less profit if you're a cigarette company, because you're killing your customers. You don't want to be killing too many of your customers, because you will sell less of the product. If you manage to convert some of your customers and gain a few new customers and put them on the electronic product, they're just as addicted to nicotine. They're going to stay on the product statistically, although they've not been around there long enough, but they're probably going to stay on it for as long as they're addicted to nicotine, which is probably as long as they're going to be addicted to smoking nicotine through cigarettes. But they're not going to get as many health problems, we hope. There's not enough long-term study on this because I've not been out long enough, but the smoke itself is the killer. If you're vaping, so they're telling us, there's less harmful chemicals, it's purer, and it's not as heavy a substance, the lungs can deal with it better. There is an assumption that electronic cigarettes don't do the damage because of the lack of smoke. So presumably an electronic cigarette user is going to live longer, be a customer for longer, and consume more of your product. So although it might be more economical for the electronic to buy than cigarettes because of the heavy tax, it's still going to be a consumer. And there's no taboo about where you can smoke. You can pretty much vape in, well, not everywhere, but it's acceptable in a lot more places. Pubs, restaurants, bars, lounges, public environments. To some extent, it might not always be, but at the moment you can vape in the UK pretty much everywhere. Smoking's different. Smoking is as good as carrying a target saying expel, get rid, go out, leave, be gone. So a bit of hypocrisy, more so when you take those two things and put them to one side and say, look, there's the tobacco or the cigarette or the nicotine industry, call it what you want. And now the food industry, which is recently had scandals. We've had the horse meat scandal, contaminated meat products containing horse meat. Many of the big chains, I'm not going to start mentioning chains because I don't want to get sued. Before that we had the BSE, mad cow disease, contaminated cattle feeds, cattle eating dead animals mixed into their feed, which brought about a reaction in the animals which were slaughtered for meat products which we consume. There's many things that go into your everyday bottle of, again I can't name brands for fear of being sued, but many well-known everyday brands. Some of them are household names, most of them are household names. Contain E numbers. These E numbers, many of them, or several of them at least, are known to be carcinogenic, cancer-producing substances, and you're drinking them and eating them on a regular basis. They go into colourings, flavourings, dyes, and they're allowed the amount of sugar that is pumped into products, the amount of salt is pumped into products. I mean, I don't have any one product where I say you shouldn't eat that, but we get that with nicotine products. You shouldn't smoke that, you shouldn't take that. Why? Because there is a link to health. It's been made fairly obvious there is a link to health, you can't deny it. The food products, much more subtle. No obvious link, no obvious danger. Eat, drink, bingo, diabetes, bingo, heart disease, bingo, stroke. All related to diet. Diet, as a researcher, diet is by far the biggest killer when compared with smoking. The diet of the Western world, the average Scottish, English, American, whatever you want, is by far the biggest contributor to that person's health, combined with lack of exercise. Smoking has a part to play in that, but it's a small part. The average ratio of smokers to non-smokers is now 1 to 4. In the UK, there are approximately 4 non-smokers for every smoker. So as a percentage, 20 to 25% of the population who smoke, take them aside, all these guys, they need to worry about their diet more than anything. And this is a scandal which is under the carpet or under the radar a wee bit, and it's to do with what supermarkets are selling you, what's going into your food, not just the E numbers, the chemicals, all the additives, but the amount of simple basic raw materials like sugar and salt to get you addicted to eating things which are high in salt and sugar, because they know that's a seller that's going to bring you back to their product with all its health hazards, with all its long-term damage to you and your children. The food industry is where the spotlight needs to be, and forget about the tobacco industry. Not totally forget about it, but leave it alone for a second, and let's have the government and the lobbyists and the health campaigners and the politically correct brigade, the right honours, looking at the food industry, target them and bring them to account. If you do that, then you can say you're concerned about public health. If you leave them alone and point all the fingers at tobacco, that's hypocrisy. End of.